BBC London 94.9.
Weekday mornings from 9.
Call 020 722 42000.
London's news.
London stories.
Amniocentesis or chorionic villus sampling are offered to pregnant women who are at high risk of having a baby with Down syndrome. 26 years ago, I had an amnio as I was considered to be an elderly prima gravida at 38. The test is invasive and very frightening, and lying on the bed knowing I could miscarry was not one of the most pleasant parts of my pregnancy. However, 26 years later, non-invasive prenatal testing has been developed. It's a blood test which is much more sensitive. Fantastic, I hear you cry, except it's not imminent, and now it's only available in private hospitals. Researchers at Great Ormond Street are now launching a study to see whether this more accurate test should be offered to pregnant women on the NHS. Is this the sort of procedure that the NHS should be spending money on, and that all pregnant women should have this test available to them? Or do you think we have a perfectly good system in place, there are only 750 Down syndrome babies born a year, and that non-invasive prenatal testing would be too costly for our ailing NHS? I want you to call me, Jenny Barnett, on 020 724 2000.
This is BBC London 94.9.
Call 020 722 42000.
A very good morning to you. It's 7 minutes past 9. I'm Jenny Barnett, and our top story is if this new non-invasive prenatal testing does work, it's 99% accurate to find out whether you have a Down syndrome baby. Should it be on the NHS? At the moment, it's only in private hospitals. Well, we asked women in West London if they were surprised that the test isn't already on the NHS.
Would it surprise me? No, it doesn't surprise me. It absolutely should be on the NHS. No, definitely, yes.
No, I think it should be available to all. I think it should be a woman's choice, and it's not for everybody. Some people it doesn't matter too, but I think that it should be available to everybody. It shouldn't matter whether it's private healthcare. I think it's something that should be available to everybody.
I think the whole Down thing is just a really, because a lot of people just don't want to find out. They'd rather just wait and see, wouldn't they? I just think it's a really hard question being a mum.
It's a very hard question being a mummy, absolutely. That's our women talking in West London. So my question is, it's a woman's choice. Should this NIPT, as it's called, non-invasive prenatal testing, should it be available to all? 0207 224 2000, or is the NHS too strapped to introduce it? 0207 224 2000, text 81333, starting your message with the word London. You can email, Facebook and Twitter. 0207 224 2000. Now, I'm joined by Steve Palmer, Chair of Parents of Down Syndrome. Good morning, Steve.
Morning, Jenny.
I think we have to say at the beginning that it wouldn't be available for ages anyway, would it?
Wouldn't be available for
anybody. They're saying that it's not imminent, or is that just in the public sector? Yeah,
I'm getting a sense of deja vu this morning, because I did similar interview back in June when there was another test, and you get to the stage where it's this whole thing where sometimes in the news as well, I get Google alerts, and then other parents of children with Downs do as well, and you always get these things about a cure that comes along, and it just seems to be, every few weeks you get one of these stories comes along. So although it's Great Ormond Street, and they saved my son's life, got to take it with quite a lot of, quite sensible about it, we in our community tend to sort of go, ooh, not again, because it just raises the whole issue. And for some people it might bring back difficult memories, and so it can be quite challenging to hear these stories, really.
Challenging because it's offering a carrot and then removing it, or challenging because you can get it in private hospitals and you can't get it on the NHS? Why challenging?
Challenging because really, and in a way, I'm sort of pointing the finger at the media a bit in the way it's reported. So I didn't know about this story until your colleague rang me and asked me to appear this morning, so I went onto the BBC website, and your colleague, I think it's James Gallagher on BBC Online, News, has written about it, and there's nothing wrong with it, but it's just written very clinically, and there's no mention of what happens next. Now, my big concern is what happens to, let's say, I mean, a lot of people will have the test and find out that the child is not going to have Down syndrome or perhaps something else, and so that's great, they can get on with their lives. What happens to, say, a couple who find out there's a diagnosis their child's going to have Down syndrome? And what do they do next? And my big point is there's no excuse for them not to be supported. There are some fantastic schemes out there. So there's no reason why they can't find out and get the best sort of support when they get that diagnosis.
When they get the diagnosis. Well,
without that diagnosis, it can be very, very clinical or medical. I remember when my son Stanley, who's 11 now, 12 in January, was born, we were handing this video, because it was 2002. They still had videos, and it was a really sort of... it had a girl in a... I remember... you remember the small things, don't you? It was a girl in a sort of pink dress, and it was saying, oh, you can achieve all these things. And it was so depressing, because it was such a sort of... Even then, VHS was such a sort of bad old format, and it was just thoroughly depressing experience, whereas there are lots of parents out there that will tell you what life is like. So, for instance, later today, my son Stan's having a flu jab, he's getting his eyes tested, and I'm thinking, why is this your top story? You're talking about my son, and we're having a normal day today in half term.
Well, now, isn't that interesting? Because you say you remember the small things. I mean, I was quite old when I had my kid, and I went in and had the amnio because they made me go and have the amnio because I was so old, and I meditated through it. But I remember lying on there thinking exactly what you're talking about. And when I came out, I said, I've become so attached to this, I don't know if I could abort. And the consultant shouted at me, we've spent money on you having this test. You will get rid if that baby is Down syndrome.
Well, Jenny, I think a lot of things have changed for the positive. So let's tell you about one thing. It's called Start It Right, Tell It Right. It's run by the Down Syndrome Association. They go and they round up a load of midwives, and they teach them what it's like, a full training day on how to deal with the situation with a child with Down syndrome is born. It's brilliant, and it's a sort of scheme that exists, and there's loads of them, that is helping to change those types of attitudes. I really hope that sort of thing is moving out of health service, education, all the various public services, so that it's a less depressing, I suppose it can be a depressing and worrying experience for a new couple with a diagnosis. So that's the point. There's all these schemes that are there, and there's no reason why people can't be supported.
Well, now, let me just ask you, though, what gets people's dander up is that if there is a breakthrough, and if this is 99% certain, has a certainty, and it is more sensitive and it's non-invasive, there was a doctor on Breakfast this morning who said the reason the NHS won't touch it is because it's too costly. Now, what's your take on that?
Well, I suppose I'm so far away from when he was born. He's almost 12. I'm not up to speed on the latest research. And, this stuff about how people can be supported is not necessarily costly, I think with all the testing options, yes, it's good to have tests. Yes, it's good to find out what's going to happen.
But it's what happened. Well, you're saying it's what happens after.
Yeah, all those things play their contribution. I know I'm not really going to answer your question, because my concern is what happens afterwards. And so you mentioned I'm chair of PODS. We're based in Barnet and, neighbouring North London councils. And, we have a Christmas party. We send out a little newsletter every week. We keep in touch. And, sometimes we get calls from people saying, I'm the uncle of a child with Down syndrome. I don't know what to do. I don't know how I could help my sister. And so we've got someone to ring them up and talk to them about it. And it's those types of things after diagnosis and after birth that are really, really important. And, I go back to that point where it just seems really, really strange to me that I'm talking about my son. I've got two children. One's going off to do his normal half-term thing because he's a bit older. The other one, we're just having a normal day. We'll probably kick a football about. And so, it just seems a bit strange to me to be, in a way, to be having the conversation. But yes, of course, anything that can be done as a contribution on the way to during pregnancy is very important. But you must have both sides of the coin, really. So
can I have your details, Steve? If people want to contact you, how do they do that?
Oh, right, OK. So we tend to be really in North London, and we're really just a small support group. And if you just put in Down syndrome North London, we'll come up on a search engine, I believe.
So if people live in south, west and east London, what do they do?
Oh, well, they get on to me and I can email them, because I know there's an active group in Southwark. I know there's an active group in East Ham. But the best thing to do is go through to the Down Syndrome Association and find out where they're affiliated to. They're really excellent as well, the Down Syndrome Association, in terms of like giving information out. They're so brilliant. So again, I know I keep banging on about it.
No, I hear you.
There's no reason why people shouldn't have great support. If you're listening now and you're feeling a little bit sort of down about something, ring the Down Syndrome Association and you might feel a bit better.
Thank you so much, Steve Palmer, and he's chair of the North London Small Support Group, chair of Parents of Down Syndrome Pods. It's now 9:16 and we have travel with Paul Murphy-Casp.
Thank you, Jenny. Good morning. The A23...